The stars looked different this far from Earth. Jake Morrison pressed his forehead against the cold viewport window and watched them shimmer like scattered diamonds on black silk. He had been staring at space for 3 hours now, unable to sleep. At 19 years old, he was the youngest person aboard the Dawn Runner, and sometimes the silence of the void made him feel incredibly small. Morrison, stop daydreaming and check the translation array. The voice of Lieutenant Collins crackled through his headset. Maya Collins was one of the few crew members who actually talked to him like a real person instead of just the kid who fixed equipment. Jake sighed and pushed away from the window. His small quarters felt cramped as always, filled with technical manuals and tools scattered across every surface. He grabbed his jacket and headed toward the communications bay. The ship hummed around him, a constant, gentle vibration that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat over the past 8 months. The Dawn Runner was not a military vessel. She was an explorer, designed to survey distant star systems and look for resources or signs of other civilizations. They had found plenty of interesting rocks and gas clouds, but nothing that would make the history books. Jake had signed on as a junior technician, mostly because he needed to pay off student loans and the exploration service offered good money. He had expected boredom, not adventure. He was halfway to the communications bay when the alarm started blaring. Red lights flooded the corridors. Jake's heart jumped into his throat as he broke into a run. Other crew members emerged from their stations, confusion and fear evident on their faces. The ship's automated voice announced calmly, "Unknown vessels detected. All personnel report to stations." Jake burst onto the bridge just as Commander Helen Brooks was taking her seat. The commander was a tall woman with gray streaking her dark hair and eyes that never seemed to miss anything. She looked calm, but Jake noticed her knuckles were white as she gripped the armrests. "Report," Brooks said. "Multiple contacts, Commander," said the sensor officer, a nervous man named Pete Gallagher. "They just appeared on our scopes. I count at least 20 ships, all bigger than us. They're surrounding us." Jake moved to his station near the back of the bridge, trying to stay out of the way. Through the main view screen, he could see them now. Massive vessels that looked like they were grown rather than built, all organic curves and strange crystalline surfaces that caught the starlight. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Are they responding to our hails?" Brooks asked. "Nothing yet, Commander." Dr. Vincent Hayes, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned forward in his seat. He was practically vibrating with excitement despite the obvious danger. "This is incredible. These ships don't match any known architecture. We might be looking at a completely new civilization. A civilization that has us completely surrounded," Brooks muttered. She took a deep breath. "Keep broadcasting friendship protocols on all frequencies. Power down weapons and make it clear we're not a threat." Jake's hands moved automatically across his console, checking the translation systems. His job was to make sure any communication that came through could be converted into something humans could understand. The equipment was sophisticated, designed to recognize patterns in any language and build a basic translation matrix. It usually took weeks to work properly, but it was better than nothing. A new signal lit up his screen. "Commander, we're receiving the transmission. Put it through." A sound filled the bridge that was like wind chimes mixed with whale song. It was beautiful but incomprehensible. Jake's equipment went to work immediately, but the analysis would take time. Then, suddenly, the transmission changed. Words emerged, heavily accented and slow, but definitely in English. "Human vessel, you have entered sacred territory of the Shkari Empire. This is violation. You will come aboard our command ship, now." The bridge went silent. Jake felt cold sweat running down his back. First contact was supposed to be handled by specialists and diplomats, not a random exploration crew in the middle of nowhere. Commander Brooks straightened her uniform. "Prepare a shuttle? Hayes, you're with me. We'll need someone who understands their biology and culture, even if we're guessing." "Collins, you have the bridge." "Commander," Maya said carefully, "this could be a trap." "But refusing might be worse. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Diplomacy is our only option." She paused, then looked directly at Jake. "Morrison, grab your portable translation kit and come with us." Jake's mouth went dry. "Me, Commander? You're our communications specialist. I need you to make sure we understand them and they understand us. Can you do that?" Jake nodded, not trusting his voice. His legs felt shaky as he followed the commander and Dr. Hayes to the shuttle bay. This was not what he had signed up for. He was supposed to fix equipment and stay in the background. Now he was about to meet aliens. The shuttle ride to the alien command ship took only minutes. Through the small windows, Jake watched as they approached a vessel that looked like a massive crystal rose floating in space. It was easily 10 times the size of the Dawn Runner, covered in facets that glowed with internal light. They docked in a hangar that could have held a dozen of their shuttles. As the airlock opened, Jake's translation device chirped, confirming the atmosphere was breathable.
He stepped out behind Commander Brooks and Dr.
Hayes, his heart hammering so hard he was sure the aliens would hear it. The hangar was empty except for a single group waiting for them at the far end. The aliens were tall, easily 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like polished silver in the strange light. They wore flowing robes of deep purple and blue that seemed to move on their own. Their faces were angular and beautiful in an unsettling way, with large eyes that held colors Jake had no names for. They had no visible mouths, yet somehow the translation device picked up their words as vibrations in the air itself. One of them stepped forward. She was clearly different from the others, wearing a crown of what looked like living light that floated above her head. Her robes were more elaborate, threaded with gold that pulsed like a heartbeat. When she moved, it was with absolute confidence and grace. "I am Princess Valora, heir to the Shkari Empire," the translation device rendered her words with a feminine voice. "You have trespassed on the tomb worlds of our ancestors. This is a crime punishable by death." Commander Brooks raised her hand slowly, palms out. "Princess Valora, I am Commander Helen Brooks of Earth. We meant no disrespect. We didn't know the system was claimed or sacred. Our maps showed it as uninhabited." "Ignorance is not innocence," Valora replied. Her enormous eyes studied each human in turn. "However, my advisors tell me your species is new to this region of space." "Unknown. This presents complications." Dr. Hayes cleared his throat nervously. "Your Highness, we would be honored to learn about your people and share knowledge of ours. Perhaps this misunderstanding could lead to friendship instead of conflict." One of the other aliens, older looking with robes of darker colors, made a sound like grinding metal. The translation device struggled with it. "The human speaks of friendship while defiling our most holy sites. Princess, we should destroy their vessel and be done with them." Valora raised one long-fingered hand. "Patience, High Counselor Gentar. There may be another way." She turned back to the humans. "Our law is ancient and clear. When outsiders violate our territory, we have the right of claiming. One warrior from the offending party becomes bound to one of our house for one cycle of our sun. This ensures peace and understanding." Jake felt his stomach drop. He glanced at Commander Brooks, who looked confused. "I'm not sure I understand," Brooks said carefully. "You want to take one of us as a hostage?" "Not hostage," Valora corrected. "Bond companion. They would live among us, learn our ways, serve as guarantee that your people will respect our boundaries. After 1 year, they return home. If they prove honorable, our peoples may trade and travel freely. If they fail or your people attack, then war comes." The High Counselor stepped closer, his presence intimidating. "It is mercy the princess offers you, humans, more than you deserve," Dr. Hayes whispered urgently to Brooks. "Commander, this might be our only chance. 1 year of one person's service versus potential war or our destruction, right now." Brooks's jaw tightened. "And if I refuse?" Valora's expression didn't change, but somehow Jake felt the temperature in the hangar drop. "Then we will assume your people are warlike and treacherous. We will destroy your ship and report to our Emperor that humanity is a threat to be eliminated before you spread further." The silence stretched out painfully. Jake's hands were shaking as he clutched his translation device. He thought about the 47 other crew members on the Dawn Runner. He thought about Earth, about his family who would never know what happened to him if this went wrong. Commander Brooks took a deep breath. "Then I volunteer myself. As captain, the responsibility is mine." "No," Valora said simply. She began walking along the line of humans, studying each one with those alien eyes. She paused at Dr. Hayes, tilting her head. "You are old, experienced. You would teach much but learn little." She moved to Commander Brooks. "You are a leader but rigid, set in your thinking." Then she stopped in front of Jake. He couldn't breathe. Those eyes looked right through him, seeing everything he tried to hide, his fear, his inexperience, his desperate wish to be anywhere else in the galaxy right now. Valora reached out one long finger and pointed directly at his chest. "This one," she said. "He is young, adaptable. His mind is not yet hardened into old patterns. He will learn our ways and teach us his. I claim him." "Wait," Commander Brooks stepped forward. "He's just a technician, barely trained. He's not a warrior at all." "He is your youngest," Valora said. "That is why I choose him. A young warrior is a bridge, not a weapon. He represents your future, not your past. She looked at Jake directly. What is your name? Jake's mouth was so dry he could barely speak. Jake Morrison, Your Highness. Jake Morrison, Valora repeated, and somehow the translation made his name sound musical. Do you accept this bond? 1 year of service for peace between our peoples? Jake looked at Commander Brooks. He saw the conflict in her eyes, the desire to protect him, warring with the responsibility to protect the entire crew. He thought about what would happen if he refused. The Dawn Runner destroyed. All those people dead because he was too scared. I accept, Jake heard himself say. His voice sounded stronger than he felt. Valora placed her hand on his shoulder. It was warm, and the touch sent a tingling sensation through his whole body. Then it is done. The bond is formed. You are mine for 1 cycle, Jake Morrison of Earth. 2 other Shkari moved forward, clearly guards. Commander Brooks grabbed Jake's arm. We'll come back for you. We'll negotiate. This isn't permanent. Commander, it's okay, Jake lied. I can do this. Doctor. Hayes pressed something into Jake's hand, his translation device. Learn everything you can. You're a diplomat now, son. Jake watched through a crystalline window as the shuttle carrying Commander Brooks and Dr. Hayes grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared back into the Dawn Runner. Then the human ship itself began to move, escorted by several Shkari vessels toward the edge of the system. He was alone now, truly alone, surrounded by aliens who could kill him with a thought. Come, Valora said, her voice still transmitted through vibrations his device caught and translated. We travel to Shekhar Prime, my homeworld. Your new home for the next cycle. The journey took 3 days by human reckoning. Jake was given quarters that were larger than his entire room on the Dawn Runner, but everything was wrong. The bed was too hard and shaped oddly. The lights never fully turned off, just dimmed to a twilight glow. The food dispensers provided things that looked like fruit but tasted like metal and flowers mixed together. He tried to eat, knowing he needed strength, but his stomach rebelled against the alien nutrients. On the second day, Valora came to visit him. She moved through the door without it opening, simply passing through the crystal surface like it was water. Jake jumped back, startled. You are not eating enough, she observed. This concerns me. The food is different, Jake said carefully. My body isn't used to it. Valora made a sound that the translator interpreted as thoughtful. She touched a panel on the wall and spoke in her own language. Minutes later, a Shikari servant brought something that looked more familiar. Fruits that were actually fruits, though strange colors. Bread that was bread, even if it was blue. We have studied your kind since your ship was detected, Valora explained. We know some of your dietary needs. You should have asked. I didn't want to be difficult, Jake admitted. Difficult would be dying of starvation, Valora said. There was something in her tone that might have been humor. You are my bond companion now, Jake Morrison. Your well-being reflects on me. If you need something, ask. She left him then, and Jake ate slowly, grateful for food that didn't make him want to throw up. He wondered what Commander Brooks was doing right now, probably trying to contact Earth, requesting instructions, maybe planning a rescue. But Earth was months away even with the fastest ships. He really was on his own. Shkar Prime appeared on the 3rd day. Jake pressed against the window and stared in amazement. The planet was beautiful, covered in cities that looked like they were made entirely of colored glass and crystal. They caught the light of the system's twin suns and threw rainbows across the atmosphere. Massive structures reached up from the surface like fingers trying to touch space. The ship descended toward the largest city, where a palace dominated the landscape. It was enormous, easily the size of a small mountain, built from crystal that shifted colors as they approached. Hundreds of towers reached skyward, and Jake could see tiny figures moving along bridges and walkways that connected everything. The Palace of 1,000 Suns, Valora said from beside him. He hadn't heard her approach. Home to the Imperial family for 60 generations. You will live here with me. They landed on a platform near the top of the palace. As Jake stepped out, the gravity hit him differently, lighter than Earth, making him feel like he might float away. The air was thinner too, and sweet-smelling like someone had mixed honey with electricity. Hundreds of Shkari had gathered to see him. They stared with those huge, colorful eyes, speaking among themselves in musical tones that made his translator work overtime. Jake felt like an insect under glass. Some of the Shkari pointed at him. Others made gestures he couldn't interpret. They have never seen a human before, Valora explained. Many did not believe your species existed. You are a curiosity made flesh to them. A Shkari even taller than Valora pushed through the crowd. He wore dark robes with red threading, and his presence felt aggressive even though Jake couldn't explain why. The translator caught his words. "So, this is the human pet you claim, sister. It looks weak, soft. How is this thing supposed to guarantee anything?" "Prince Corvin," Valora's voice held warning. "Jake Morrison is my bond companion, not a pet. Show respect." "Respect must be earned," Carvin said. He circled Jake like a predator studying prey. "I give it 3 months before it fails or dies." "This was foolish, Valora. You should have let me destroy their ship." "Enough," came a new voice, deep and powerful. An older Shikari approached, supported by 2 attendants. He wore robes so elaborate they seemed to be made of pure light. The crown above his head blazed like a small star. Everyone immediately bowed, including Valora. Jake quickly copied them. "Emperor Voxen," Valora said. "Father, rise. Daughter, let me see this human you have claimed." The Emperor moved closer, and Jake forced himself not to back away. Those ancient eyes studied him with an intelligence that was frightening. Young, as you said. Frightened, but standing. "That is something." He accepted the bond willingly, Valora said. "For the sake of his people." The Emperor made a sound that might have been approval. "We shall see if your judgment was wise, daughter." "The Council doubts. They say humans are primitive and dangerous. They want me to declare war and cleanse this species before it spreads." He looked at Jake again. "You have 1 year to prove them wrong, young human. 1 year to show us that your kind deserves to exist in our galaxy." The weight of those words nearly crushed Jake. 1 year to save humanity. He was 19 years old. He fixed communication equipment. He had no training for this, no preparation. But he met the Emperor's gaze and nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty." "Good." Emperor Voxen turned away. "Valora, teach him our ways, quickly. The Council meets in 1 month to discuss the human question. I would prefer to have positive reports by then." The first week nearly broke Jake. Valora assigned him quarters near her own chambers, rooms that were beautiful but felt like a cage. Every morning before the twin suns rose, she woke him for training. The Shikari did not believe in gentle introductions. "You must learn to move properly," she said on the 3rd day as Jake gasped for breath on the training floor. "Our gravity is lighter than yours, yet you stumble like a newborn." "Why?" "I'm trying," Jake panted. His muscles ached in ways he had never experienced. The Shikari fighting style was all flowing movements and impossible flexibility. His human body simply did not bend that way. Valora studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down beside him on the crystal floor. "I chose you because you were young and adaptable, but perhaps I pushed too hard, too fast. Tell me, Jake Morrison, what are you good at?" The question surprised him. "I fix things. Computers, communication systems, machinery. I understand how things work and how to make them work better." "Show me." Jake spent the next hour explaining human technology to her, how computers processed information, how translation devices built language matrices, how ships navigated through space using quantum calculations. Valora listened with intense focus, occasionally asking questions that showed she understood far more than he expected. "Your mind is sharp," she said finally. "You see patterns and connections. This is valuable. Perhaps you need not become a warrior in the traditional sense. Perhaps your value lies elsewhere." That evening, Valora took him to a gathering of the imperial court. The great hall was filled with hundreds of Shikari nobles, all dressed in elaborate robes, all staring at Jake as he entered. He felt exposed, vulnerable, completely out of place. An older female Shikari approached them. Her robes were silver and black, and her crown suggested high status. "Niece," she said to Valora with a voice like ice, "how kind of you to bring your human pet to entertain us." "Aunt Shamara," Valora replied coolly, "may I present Jake Morrison of Earth?" "Jake, this is Lady Shamara, my father's sister." Jake bowed as he had been taught, but Shamara barely acknowledged it. "Tell me, human, what does your primitive species offer the Shikari Empire? Why should we not simply exterminate you before you become a threat?" The hall went silent. Every eye turned to Jake. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to speak clearly. "Because diversity makes everyone stronger. Your empire is ancient and wise. Humanity is young and innovative. We solve problems differently. Maybe together we could accomplish things neither of us could do alone." Shmara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. It speaks well for an animal, but words are cheap, human. Can you do anything useful? Before Jake could respond, something went wrong with the hall's lighting system. The crystal panels that provided illumination began flickering wildly, throwing the room into chaos. Shkari shouted in alarm. Some kind of malfunction, Jake realized. He could hear the power system struggling, a high-pitched whine that suggested feedback loops in the energy distribution. Let me look at it, Jake said to Valora. You know our technology. Technology is technology. The principles are universal. Valora led him to a control panel. It was nothing like human systems, all crystal interfaces and light-based controls, but Jake could see the patterns. Energy flowing through crystals, being distributed, being regulated, or in this case, not being regulated properly. He studied the panel, ignoring the crowd gathering behind him. Here, he pointed to one crystal that pulsed erratically. This regulator is damaged. It is sending conflicting signals to the distribution network. You need to bypass it and reroute power through the secondary channels. A Shkari technician pushed forward. The human is correct. How did you see this so quickly? I told you, Jake said. I fixed things. Within minutes, the light stabilized. The crowd murmured among themselves. Valora looked at Jake with something that might have been approval. Fortunate timing, Lady Shmara said coldly. Or perhaps the human sabotaged the system to make himself look valuable. Aunt, Valora's voice held warning. That is a serious accusation. Is it? How convenient that this malfunction happened just as your pet was being questioned. Shmara moved closer to Jake. I do not trust your species, human. I believe you are here to spy, to learn our weaknesses. And I will prove it. She swept away, taking several other nobles with her. Jake realized he had just made an enemy, though he was not sure how or why. That night, Jake could not sleep. He stood at his window, looking out over the crystal city below. Millions of Shkari lived down there, and beyond them, billions more across the Empire. All of them potentially hostile to humanity. How was one 19-year-old technician supposed to bridge that gap? You handled Shmara well, Valora's voice came from behind him. Again, she had entered without him hearing. Not many can stand against her verbal attacks. She hates me, Jake said. She hates all humans. She fears you, Valora corrected. Fear and hate often look similar. My aunt has much influence at court. She leads the faction that believes the Empire should remain isolated, that all outsiders are threats. Your presence challenges everything she believes. What do you believe? Jake asked. Valora was quiet for a long moment. I believe the Empire is dying, slowly. We have become stagnant, looking only to our past, never to our future. When I saw your ship, saw your people, I saw possibility. Change. Growth. That is why I claimed you, Jake Morrison. Not to save your people, though that matters too, but to save mine. She left him then, and Jake stood alone in the darkness, understanding for the first time that he was not just a hostage or a guarantee. He was a symbol. A test. The first step towards something much larger than himself. The next morning, Jake woke to alarms blaring through the palace. He jumped from his bed, heart racing, and ran to the door. Shkari guards rushed through the corridors, weapons drawn. Something was very wrong. Valora burst into his room moments later. Stay close to me. There has been an attack. An attack? On who? On my father, the Emperor. Jake followed her through winding corridors of crystal, past guards and servants in various states of panic. They reached the Emperor's chambers to find High Counselor Gentar blocking the entrance, his expression grim. Princess, you should not be here.
Where is my father? Valora demanded.
Alive but injured, poisoned during his morning meal. The physicians are with him now. Zentar's eyes shifted to Jake. It is suspicious that such an attack comes so soon after a human arrives at the palace. You cannot possibly think Jake had anything to do with this, Valora said. Can I not? Your alien pet has access to areas most do not. He could have tampered with the Emperor's food, introduced some human toxin. That is insane, Jake protested. I have been watched constantly since I arrived. I have never been anywhere near the Emperor's private chambers. Guards, take the human into custody, Zentar ordered. Two massive Shkari moved toward Jake, but Valora stepped between them. You will not touch him. He is under my protection, bound by sacred law. Unless you have proof of his involvement, he remains free. The tension was thick enough to cut. Finally, Gentar backed down. Very well, Princess. But I will be watching him closely. Over the next few days, the palace became a place of whispers and suspicion. The Emperor survived the poisoning but remained weak, confined to his chambers. Prince Corvan took over many daily duties, his hostility toward Jake growing stronger with each passing hour. Lady Shmara used the attack to fuel her arguments that outsiders brought only danger. Jake felt the walls closing in. He spent his time studying Shkari technology, trying to stay useful, but he could feel eyes watching him constantly. Some Shkari openly called for his execution. Others simply avoided him as if he carried some disease. On the 5th day after the attack, Jake was in the palace archives studying Shkari power systems when he noticed something odd. The record showed energy usage patterns that did not make sense. One section of the palace, an area marked as unused storage, was drawing significant power, more power than it should need for simple maintenance. He showed his findings to Valora that evening. She studied the data with growing concern. "The storage area is near my aunt's chambers," she said quietly. What could require so much power? Only one way to find out. They went together, moving quietly through corridors that grew darker and less maintained. The storage area was behind a locked door, but Valora's royal access opened it easily. Inside, they found something that made Jake's blood run cold. Equipment. Human equipment. Or rather, copies of human technology, crude but functional. Communication devices, power cells, even what looked like a weapon based on human plasma designs. Someone had been studying Earth technology and building their own versions. "This is how they poisoned my father," Valora whispered, using human-style chemical compounds that our physicians did not recognize. "They wanted it to look like you're doing." "Your aunt?" Jake said. "She is trying to frame me to start a war." Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. They had been followed. Lady Shmara appeared in the doorway, flanked by a dozen warriors wearing unfamiliar uniforms. Not palace guards, private soldiers. "How unfortunate," Shmara said with cold satisfaction. "The human and the foolish princess discover my work. Now I must move my plans forward earlier than I wished." "Aunt, this is treason," Valora said. "This is salvation," Shmara corrected. "Your father is weak. He considers peace with humans. Peace with primitives who will eventually destroy us. I will not allow it. The Emperor will die from his poisoning, and the evidence will show the human was responsible. War will come. Humanity will be crushed, and I will guide Corvin to the throne." "My brother would never agree to this. Your brother is ambitious and easily manipulated. He already believes the human is dangerous." Shmara gestured to her soldiers. "Take them both. Hold them until the Emperor dies. Then we will have a very public trial and execution." The soldiers moved forward. Valora pushed Jake behind her, taking a defensive stance, but they were outnumbered badly. Jake's mind raced. They needed help, needed to warn someone, but who could they trust? Then he remembered his translation device. It was not just a translator. It was also a communication system, linked to the Dawn Runners network. If he could boost the signal, if the ship was still in range, maybe he could send a message. "Valora," he whispered urgently. "Keep him talking. I need 30 seconds. She understood immediately. "Aunt, you will never succeed. The council will see through your lies." While Shmara explained her intricate plans with villainous pride, Jake's fingers worked frantically on his device. He patched into the palace power systems, using them to amplify his signal. He had no idea if it would work, but he had to try. He managed to send 3 words before the soldiers grabbed him. Palace. "Treason. Help." The device was ripped from his hands and crushed. The soldiers dragged him and Valora away to some deep dungeon beneath the palace. The crystal walls here were dark, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. They were thrown into a cell, the door sealed with energy fields. Valora slumped against the wall. "I am sorry, Jake Morrison. I brought you here to save your people, and instead I have led you to death.